The door slammed open, and my heart stopped. I was tangled in Ethan's arms, our lips inches apart. When my nephew's voice sliced through the quiet, "Uncle Jake." What the hell? In that frozen second, 16 years of hiding who I was crashed down like a house of cards. I'm Jake Miller, 38, a high school history teacher in suburban Ohio, living a life I'd carefully curated to look normal. Normal meant no questions, no whispers, no truth. For years, I'd buried my identity under layers of routine grading papers, coaching soccer, mowing the lawn on Sundays. Ethan, my partner, was the only one who saw the real me. But even that was confined to stolen moments in my small, unassuming house. We'd been together for 2 years, always behind closed doors. Because in a town like ours, love like ours was a secret you kept or a scandal you survived. That night, Ethan had come over after a long week. We were on the couch, laughing over a bottle of cheap wine, when the air shifted. His hand brushed mine, and the world outside faded. We were kissing, lost in the kind of moment that made everything else bearable. When my nephew, Caleb, burst in. He wasn't supposed to be here. He was supposed to be at his mom's, 30 miles away. But there he was, 16, lanky, with a backpack slung over one shoulder and a look of shock that burned into me. "Caleb," I stammered, pulling away from Ethan. My voice cracked, betraying every ounce of panic. Ethan sat up, his calm demeanor faltering for once. Caleb's eyes darted between us, his mouth half open, like he was trying to process a language he didn't speak. I forgot my charger," he muttered, pointing vaguely toward the kitchen. But he didn't move. His gaze locked on me, and I felt exposed, like a kid caught stealing. I'd raised Caleb as much as his mom had picked him up from school, cheered at his games, taught him how to tie a tie. He was my family, my pride. But he didn't know this part of me. No one did. "I'm sorry you had to see that," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I braced for anger, disgust, the kind of reaction I'd feared my whole life. But Caleb's face softened, and he said something that turned my world upside down. "Uncle Jake, are you happy?" Happy. The word hit me like a freight train. I'd spent so long hiding. I hadn't even asked myself that question. Ethan reached for my hand, squeezing it gently, and I realized I had to answer not just for Caleb, but for myself. I nodded, my throat tight. "Yeah, kid. I am." Caleb dropped his backpack and sat on the armrest of the couch, his sneakers scuffing the floor. "Okay," he said, like he was testing the word. "Okay." Then he looked at Ethan, and instead of judgment, there was curiosity. "So, you're together?" Ethan, ever the diplomat, smiled. "Yeah, I'm Ethan. Nice to meet you, Caleb." He extended a hand, and after a beat, Caleb shook it, his expression unreadable but not hostile. I couldn't believe it. I'd spent decades dreading this moment. And my nephew me awkward. Video game-obsessed nephew was handling it better than I ever could have. But the calm didn't last. Caleb's mom, my sister Laura, was a different story. She was traditional, a churchgoer, the kind of person who loved fiercely but judged quickly. If Caleb told her, my carefully built life could unravel. I looked at him, my heart pounding. "Caleb, you can't tell your mom." "Not yet." He frowned, his brows knitting together. "Why not? She's going to find out eventually." He was right, and that terrified me. Laura and I had always been close, but her world was black and white, and I was a shade of gray she might not accept. I'd seen her bristle at the mention of those people on the news, her lips tightening like she was swallowing something bitter. I couldn't lose her. But I couldn't keep lying either. Caleb, please, I said, my voice breaking. Just give me time. He nodded slowly, but I could see the gears turning in his head. He wasn't a kid anymore who was old enough to question, to challenge, to see through the cracks in my facade. And as he grabbed his charger and left, I knew this was only the beginning. That night, Ethan stayed over, something we rarely risked. We lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the weight of the moment pressing down on us. He's a good kid, Ethan said, his voice soft. He's not going to betray you. I know, I whispered, but doubt not at me. Caleb's reaction had been a miracle, but miracles don't last. I had to decide keep hiding or face the truth, no matter the cost. The next morning, I woke to a text from Caleb. We need to talk. Meet me at the diner after school. My stomach churned. I'd spent my life avoiding conversations like this, but there was no running now. The diner was a small, greasy spoon on Main Street, the kind of place where locals gossiped over coffee. I sat in a booth, my hands sweaty, waiting for Caleb to show up and change everything. When he walked in, his expression was serious, but not angry. He slid into the booth across from me, his backpack thudding to the floor. Uncle Jake, he said, leaning forward. I'm not going to tell Mom, but you got to tell me what's going on. All of it. And so, I did. For the first time, I told someone my truth, how I'd known I was gay since I was a kid, how I'd hidden it to fit in, how meeting Ethan had changed everything. Caleb listened, his eyes wide but steady. And when I finished, he said something that broke me open. I just want you to be okay. I realized then that this wasn't just about me. It was about Caleb, about Laura, about the family we'd built and the secrets that could tear it apart. I had to find a way to bridge the gap between who I was and who they thought I was. But as I looked at Caleb, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't alone anymore. The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed above us, casting a harsh glow on Caleb's face as he waited for me to say more. I just spilled my soul, something I'd never done before, and the silence between us felt like a tightrope. I gripped my coffee mug, the warmth grounding me as I braced for his next question. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Caleb asked, his voice low but not accusing. He was picking at the edge of his napkin, tearing it into tiny strips. I mean, I'm not a kid anymore. I could have handled it. I sighed, the weight of years pressing down. It's not about you handling it, Caleb. It's about me. I grew up in a world where this being gay wasn't something you shouted from the rooftops. My dad, your grandpa, he'd have lost it. And your mom. I trailed off, picturing Laura's face, her disapproval like a storm cloud. I didn't want to lose you guys. Caleb leaned back, crossing his arms. That's dumb. You're my uncle. I'm not going to ditch you over this. His bluntness caught me off guard, and I almost laughed. He was so young, so sure the world could be simple. But I envied that certainty. I know, I said, but it's not just about you. Your mom's complicated. She loves me, but she's got her beliefs. In this town, I gestured toward the diner's window, where Main Street stretched out, quiet and judgmental. People talk. I've seen what happens when they do. Caleb's eyes narrowed. So you're just gonna hide forever? What about Ethan? He seems cool. You're happy with him, right? I nodded, a small smile breaking through. Yeah, he's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Saying it out loud felt like a confession, like I was finally claiming a piece of myself I'd locked away. Ethan was 39, a graphic designer with a quiet strength and a laugh that could light up a room. He'd moved to Ohio from Chicago, chasing a slower life, and somehow found me. But our relationship was a secret, confined to late-night dinners and weekends away from prying eyes. Caleb leaned forward, his voice dropping. Then why are you so scared? I mean, yeah, Mom might freak, but she'll get over it. She's not a monster. I wanted to believe him, but Laura's face flashed in my mind, her tight smile at church, her comments about traditional families. She wasn't cruel, but she was rigid, and I wasn't sure love would outweigh her convictions. I'll tell her, I said finally, but I need to do it my way. Okay. Promise me you'll keep this quiet for now. Caleb hesitated, then nodded. Fine. But don't take forever. Secrets suck. He grabbed a fry from the plate we were sharing and popped it in his mouth, like we'd just settled a debate about homework. I marveled at him, this kid who'd walked in on his uncle kissing a man and was more worried about my happiness than anything else. That night, I drove home, my mind racing. Ethan was waiting, sprawled on the couch with a book, his glasses slipping down his nose. He looked up as I walked in, reading my face like he always did. How'd it go? He asked, setting the book down. He's not mad, I said, sinking next to him. He's okay with it. Wants me to tell Laura. I laughed. A brittle sound. Easy for him to say. Ethan's hand found mine, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. He's right. Though, you can't keep this up forever. It's eating you alive. I knew he was right. Every day I hid was another day I wasn't fully living. But the thought of telling Laura off, seeing her face twist with disappointment or worse, made my chest tight. What if she hates me? I whispered. She won't, Ethan said firmly. She might need time, but she's your sister. She loves you. He pulled me close, and for a moment, I let myself believe him. The next few days were a blur of normalcy and dread. I went to work, graded papers, smiled at colleagues. But Caleb's words echoed in my head. Secrets suck. He was right. The weight of my silence was crushing me. And every time I saw Laura at Sunday dinner, at the grocery store, I felt like a fraud. She'd always been my rock, the one who'd bandaged my knees as a kid and cheered me on as an adult. But this truth felt like a betrayal of everything we'd built. On Friday, Caleb texted me again. Mom's asking why you're acting weird. You gotta tell her soon. My stomach dropped. Laura was perceptive. She'd sensed something was off. I couldn't keep dodging her questions. I called Ethan, my voice shaky. I'm telling her this weekend. I have to. Good, he said, his voice warm. I'll be there if you need me. Saturday morning, I drove to Laura's house, a modest two-story in a quiet neighborhood. Caleb was at a friend's. Thank God I needed to do this alone. Laura greeted me with a hug, her smile bright but curious. You okay, Jake? You've been off lately. I took a deep breath, my heart hammering. Laura, we need to talk. Laura's kitchen smelled of coffee and cinnamon, her Saturday baking ritual in full swing. She set a plate of muffins on the table, her eyes searching mine. Talk about what? She asked, her tone light but edged with concern. I sat across from her, my hands clasped to stop them from shaking. This was a moment I'd avoided for years. Laura, I've been keeping something from you. I started, my voice barely steady. I'm gay. The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Laura's smile froze, then faded. She set her coffee mug down, her movement slow, deliberate. What? She said, like she hadn't heard me right. I'm gay, I repeated, forcing myself to meet her gaze. I've known since I was a kid. I've been with someone, Ethan, for 2 years. I love him. Her face was a mask, unreadable, and that scared me more than anger would have. She stood, crossing her arms, and paced to the window, Jake, why didn't you tell me? Her voice was tight, like she was holding back a flood. All these years, you've been lying. I wasn't lying, I said, my throat burning. I was surviving. You know how Dad was, how this town is. I didn't want to lose you. She turned, her eyes glistening. Lose me? Jake, I'm your sister. You think I'd just walk away? But there was hurt in her voice. And something else, discomfort. Maybe fear. It's a lot. I need to process this. I nodded, my chest aching. I get it. I just needed you to know. She sat back down, her hands twisting together. And Caleb? Does he know? I hesitated, then nodded. He walked in on us last week. He's okay with it. Laura's eyes widened. He knew before me. The betrayal in her voice cut deep. Jake, I'm his mother. You should have told me first. I didn't plan it, I said, desperation creeping in. He just showed up. I wasn't ready for any of this. She looked away, her jaw tight. I need time. Jake, this isn't. I don't know what to think right now. I left her house feeling like I'd cracked something precious. Ethan was waiting at home. And when I told him how it went, he pulled me into a hug. She'll come around, he said, but I wasn't so sure. The next day, Caleb called. Mom's been quiet all morning, he said. She didn't say anything, but I can tell she's freaking out. What did you tell her? The truth, I said, my voice heavy. She's not happy, but she didn't kick me out. She'll get over it, Caleb said, his confidence unwavering. Just give her space. But space felt like a chasm. Laura didn't call, didn't text. For a week, we barely spoke, and every silence felt like a rejection. I threw myself into work, but the classroom felt hollow. My students noticed, one even asked if I was okay. I wasn't. I was unraveling. Then, on Friday, Laura showed up at my doorstep. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed. We need to talk, she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. I braced myself, expecting a lecture, but instead, she hugged me. I'm sorry, she whispered. I was mad you didn't trust me. But I've been thinking, you're my brother. I don't care who you love. I just want you to be honest with me. Tears stung my eyes as I hugged her back. I'm sorry I kept it from you, I said. I was scared. She pulled back, her expression soft but serious. I don't understand everything. Jake, my faith, it's complicated. But I'm trying. I want to meet Ethan. Properly. It was a small step, but it felt like a mountain. That night, I called Ethan, my voice shaking with relief. She wants to meet you, I said. She's trying. He laughed, the sound warm and grounding. Told you she'd come around. But the town wasn't Laura. Word spread someone saw Ethan leaving my house. And the whispers started. By Monday, a colleague gave me a sideways glance in the staff room. A parent emailed, questioning my suitability as a teacher. The life I'd built was fraying, and I wasn't sure I could hold it together. Caleb, though, was my anchor. He showed up after school, his usual grin in place. Heard some kids talking crap about you, he said. I set him straight. You're still the best uncle. His words hit me hard. I'd spent so long hiding. But Caleb's acceptance and now Loris gave me a spark of courage. Maybe I could face the town, the judgment, the whispers. Maybe I could finally live. The whispers in town grew louder, like a radio stuck between stations. By the end of the week, I couldn't walk into the local grocery store without feeling eyes on me. Ethan noticed it, two people staring as we grabbed coffee. their murmurs trailing us like shadows. But he held my hand anyway, his grip steady, and I clung to that. Laura's olive branch gave me hope, but the rest of the world wasn't so forgiving. At school, the principal called me into her office. Mrs. Carter was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s. Her desk cluttered with photos of her grandkids. "Jake," she said, her voice measured. "We've had complaints. Some parents are concerned about your personal life." My stomach twisted. "My personal life doesn't affect my teaching," I said, keeping my tone even. "I've been here 10 years. My record's clean." She sighed, adjusting her glasses. "I know. You're one of our best. But this is a small town. People talk. And they're talking about you and your friend." "His name's Ethan," I said, sharper than I meant to. "And he's not a friend. He's my partner." Mrs. Carter nodded, her expression unreadable. "I'm not saying it's right, Jake. I'm saying it's reality. I'll back you. But you need to keep things discreet." Discreet. The word tasted like ash. I'd been discreet my whole life. And where had it gotten me? Hiding in my own home. Lying to my family. Dodging glances in my own town. I left her office with a nod. But inside, I was seething. That night, Ethan and I sat on my porch. The autumn air crisp and biting. "You don't have to fight this alone," he said, his hand resting on my knee. "We can leave. Start over somewhere else." I shook my head. "This is my home. Caleb's here. Laura's here. I'm not running." But the words felt hollow. The town I'd grown up in, the place I'd built my life, was turning on me, and I wasn't sure I was strong enough to stand up to it. Caleb came over the next day, his face stormy. "Some jerk at school said you shouldn't be teaching because of, you know." He kicked at the rug, his fists clenched. I told him to shut up, but he wouldn't. I almost punched him. "Caleb." "No," I said, grabbing his shoulder. "You don't fight my battles. You hear me." He pulled away, his eyes blazing. "Why not? Your family. They're being idiots." I couldn't help but smile, even as my chest ached. "I know, kid. But fighting won't fix this. I've got to handle it my way." His shoulders slumped, but he nodded. "Fine. But I'm not going to let them talk crap about you." That evening, Laura invited us to dinner and Ethan. It was a big step, and I was nervous as hell. We arrived at her house, Ethan carrying a bottle of wine like a peace offering. Laura greeted us warmly, but there was a stiffness in her smile, like she was still finding her footing. Dinner was awkward at first. Caleb filled the silence with stories about school, his chatter a lifeline. But then Laura turned to Ethan, her voice careful. "So, Ethan, what do you do?" "I'm a graphic designer," he said, his tone easy. "Mostly freelance. Some work for local businesses." She nodded, her eyes softening. "That's interesting. Jake's always been the creative one in the family, too." It was a small thing, but it felt like a bridge. By the end of the night, Laura was laughing at Ethan's jokes, and Caleb was asking him about video game design. For the first time, I saw a future where my family and my love could coexist. But the town wasn't done with me. The next week, a petition started circulating, parents demanding my removal from the school. It was led by a man named Tom Reynolds, a local mechanic with a loud voice and louder opinions. I taught his daughter last year, and she'd gotten an A. Now he was calling me a bad influence. I found out about the petition from Caleb, who'd overheard kids talking at school. "They're saying you're unnatural," he said, his voice shaking with anger. "It's bullshit, Uncle Jake." Language. I said automatically, but my heart wasn't in it. I felt sick. This was my livelihood, my reputation, my home, and it was slipping away. Ethan was furious when I told him. "We need to fight this," he said, pacing my living room. "You're a damn good teacher. They can't do this." But I wasn't so sure. The school board was meeting in a week to discuss the petition, and I knew Tom had sway in town. I had to decide: stand up and risk everything, or back down and keep what little I had left. Caleb's words echoed in my head. Your family. For him. For Laura. For Ethan. I had to try. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. The school board meeting loomed like a storm cloud. I spent the week preparing, drafting a statement, rehearsing it in my head until it felt like a mantra. Ethan helped, his calm presence keeping me grounded. But every night I lay awake, imagining the worst: losing my job, my reputation, my place in this town. Caleb was my shadow, checking in daily. His texts a mix of encouragement and teenage bravado. "You got this. Uncle Jake. Screw the haters." His support was a lifeline, but it also reminded me how much was at stake. If I lost this fight, it wouldn't just be my life upended, it would be his, too. He'd see what happens when you stand up and lose. Laura came over midweek, her face softer than it had been. "I'm coming to the meeting," she said, setting a casserole dish on my counter. "I don't know if it'll help, but I'm there." I stared at her, my throat tight. "You don't have to. This could get ugly." She met my eyes, unwavering. "You're my brother. I'm not letting you face this alone." Her words carried me through the next few days, but the anxiety didn't fade. The night before the meeting, Ethan and I sat on my couch, a pizza box between us. "Whatever happens," he said, his voice steady, "we're in this together. You know that, right?" I nodded, but fear clawed at me. What if they fire me? What if this town turns its back on us? "Then we start over," he said simply. "But you're not giving up without a fight." The meeting was held in the school gym, the air thick with tension. Rows of chairs were filled with parents, teachers, and locals, their faces a mix of curiosity and judgment. Tom Reynolds stood at the front, his petition in hand, his voice booming as he listed his grievances. "We need teachers who uphold our values," he said, his eyes flicking to me. "Not ones who flaunt their lifestyle." I felt Ethan's hand on my arm, steadying me. When it was my turn to speak, my legs shook as I walked to the podium. The gym was silent, every eye on me. I cleared my throat, my statement memorized but feeling inadequate. "I've been teaching here for 10 years. I began, my voice stronger than I felt. "I've coached your kids, graded their papers, stayed late to help them succeed. My personal life doesn't change that. I'm gay, yes, but that doesn't make me less of a teacher. It makes me human." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some faces softened, others hardened. Tom stood up, his voice cutting through. "This isn't about your teaching, Jake. It's about what's right for our kids." Before I could respond, Laura stood, her voice clear and sharp. "What's right for our kids is having teachers who care. Jake's been there for my son, for your kids, more than anyone. You're not mad about his teaching, you're mad about who he loves. That's not right." The gym erupted in whispers. Caleb, sitting in the back, gave me a thumbs up, his grin fierce. I felt a surge of pride, but it was short-lived. The board deliberated for an hour, and when they returned, Mrs. Carter's face was grim. "Jake, we value your work," she said, "but the community's concerns are significant. We're placing you on administrative leave, pending further review." The words hit like a punch. I nodded, numb, and walked out, Ethan and Laura flanking me. Outside, Caleb was waiting, his face pale. "They can't do that," he said, his voice shaking. "You didn't do anything wrong." "I know," I said, but the fight was draining out of me. The town had spoken, and I wasn't sure I could change its mind. The next day, I stayed home, the curtains drawn. Ethan tried to cheer me up, but I was spiraling. My phone buzzed with messages, some supportive, others cruel. Then Caleb showed up, his backpack slung over his shoulder. "I'm not letting this go," he said, his eyes blazing. "I started a petition, kids at school, teachers, even some parents. They're signing it to get you back." I stared at him, stunned. "Caleb, you don't have to." "Yeah, I do." He cut me off. "Your family. And you're not giving up." His words lit a spark in me. Maybe the town wasn't ready, but Caleb was. Laura was. Ethan was. And for them, I'd keep fighting. Caleb's petition spread like wildfire. By the end of the week, he'd collected over 200 signatures, students, teachers, even a few parents who'd sat silent at the board meeting. He showed up at my house with a stack of papers, his face flushed with pride. "We're not done yet," he said, dropping the pile on my coffee table. "I'm taking this to the board." I was floored. This kid, who'd once cried over a lost soccer game, was organizing a movement for me. "Caleb, this is incredible," I said, my voice thick. "But you need to be careful. People might come after you, too." He shrugged, his teenage bravado unshaken. "Let em. I'm not scared." I wished I had his courage. The administrative leave felt like a limbo, each day heavier than the last. Ethan kept me sane, cooking dinners and dragging me out for walks. But the uncertainty gnawed at me. What if the board didn't budge? What if Caleb's petition wasn't enough? Laura was a quiet force, too. She'd started talking to other parents, the ones who didn't sign Tom's petition but hadn't spoken up either. "Some of them are on your side," she told me over coffee. "They're just afraid of Tom and his crowd. But they're listening." Her words gave me a flicker of hope, but I couldn't shake the fear. The town was splitting those who supported me and those who saw me as a threat. At the grocery store, a woman I'd known for years turned away when I said hello. But then a student's mom stopped me, her voice low. "You helped my son pass history. I don't care who you love. Keep fighting." That night, Ethan and I sat down with Caleb to plan. The board was holding another meeting in a week, and Caleb wanted to present his petition. "We need to show them you're not alone," he said, his eyes bright. "I'm going to speak, too." "Caleb, that's a big deal," I said, worry creeping in. "You sure you're ready for that?" He nodded, fierce. "I'm not letting them push you out." The day of the meeting, the gym was packed again, the air electric with tension. Tom was there, his face smug, but I noticed fewer of his supporters this time. Caleb stood beside me, clutching his petition, his hands steady despite the crowd. When it was his turn, he walked to the podium, his voice clear. "My Uncle Jake's the best teacher I know," he said. "He's been there for me my whole life. He's gay. Yeah, but that doesn't change who he is. You're not mad about his teaching, you're mad about something that's none of your business." The room was silent. Then a few people clapped. I saw Laura in the crowd, her eyes shining with pride. Tom stood, his face red. But before he could speak, Mrs. Carter cut him off. "We've heard enough," she said. "We'll review the petition and make a decision." As we left, Caleb grabbed my arm. "Did I do okay?" "You were amazing," I said, pulling him into a hug. Ethan squeezed my shoulder, his smile warm. For the first time, I felt like we might actually win. But the victory was short-lived. The next day, I got a call from Mrs. Carter. The board split. She said, "We need more time." And Jake, Tom's group, is planning a protest outside the school. My heart sank. A protest meant more attention, more hate. I told Ethan, and his face hardened. "We're not backing down," he said. "We'll be there, too." Laura organized a counter-protest, rallying parents and students who supported me. Caleb spread the word at school. And by the day of the protest, we had a small but fierce group, 20 people. Maybe. Holding signs that said "Support Jake" and "Love is love." Tom's group was louder. Their signs uglier. "Protect our kids." One read. "No place for sin," said another. I stood with Ethan, Laura, and Caleb, my heart pounding as the two sides faced off. A reporter from the local paper was there, snapping photos. And I knew this was bigger than me now. Caleb stepped forward, holding a megaphone Laura had borrowed. "My uncle's not hurting anyone," he said, his voice carrying over the crowd. "He's a teacher, a brother, an uncle. Stop hating him for being himself." Some of Tom's group shouted back, but others looked uncomfortable, their signs lowering. I saw a few parents from my classes in the crowd, their faces conflicted. Maybe, just maybe, we were getting through. The protest left me shaken but resolute. Caleb's voice, ringing out through that megaphone, was a beacon in the chaos. He'd become my champion. This 16-year-old who barely remembered to do his laundry. But the fight wasn't over. The board's decision was still pending, and the town's divide was growing sharper. Laura invited us over that night, her kitchen a safe haven from the storm outside. She'd made lasagna, Caleb's favorite, and we sat around her table, the tension easing with every bite. Ethan told stories about his college days, making Caleb laugh so hard he snorted soda. Laura watched, her smile genuine, and for a moment, I felt like we were a family whole, unbroken. But Laura's eyes were serious when she spoke. "Jake, I've been talking to people at church," she said. "Some of them are coming around. Pastor Mark even said he'd pray for you, not in a bad way, but for strength." I blinked, surprised. Pastor Mark was old school, the kind of preacher who quoted scripture like it was law. If he was softening, maybe others could, too. "Thanks, Laura," I said, my voice thick. "That means a lot." Caleb piped up, his mouth full of lasagna. "I'm posting about the petition online. Kids at school are sharing it. We're not giving up." Ethan squeezed my hand under the table, his eyes warm. "You've got a hell of a team, Jake." The next day, I got an unexpected call from Mrs. Carter. "Jake, the board's meeting tomorrow," she said. "We've reviewed Caleb's petition, and there's a lot of support. Be there." My heart raced. This was a final verdict. I spent the night pacing, Ethan trying to calm me with bad puns and worse coffee. "Whatever happens," he said, "you've already won. You're out. You're honest. And you've got people fighting for you." The board meeting was standing room only. Caleb was there, clutching his petition like a shield. Laura sat beside him, her face calm but determined. Ethan was on my other side, his presence steadying me. Tom was there, too, his arms crossed. But his group seemed smaller, less certain. Mrs. Carter opened the meeting, her voice firm. "We've heard from both sides," she said. "Jake Miller is an exemplary teacher. His personal life has no bearing on his ability to do his job. The board has voted to reinstate him. Effective immediately. The gym erupted, cheers from our side. Grumbles from Tom's. Caleb hooped, throwing his arms around me. Laura hugged me next, her eyes wet. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. Tom stood, his face red. "This isn't over," he said, storming out with a handful of supporters. But their exit felt hollow, like a wave receding. The room was with us. That night, we celebrated at my house. Pizza, music, laughter. Caleb was on his phone, texting his friends about the victory. Laura raised a glass, her voice steady. "To family," she said, "and to being true." I clinked my glass against hers, my heart full. Ethan leaned in, his lips brushing my ear. "Told you we'd make it." But the win wasn't just mine. It was Caleb's, for standing up when I couldn't. It was Laura's, for choosing love over fear. It was Ethan's, for never letting go. The town wasn't fully ours yet. There'd be more whispers, more fights, but we'd taken a stand. And we weren't alone. The next day, I went back to work, my classroom feeling like home again. Students greeted me, some shy, some bold. One girl, a quiet sophomore, slipped me a note. "Thanks for being you." I tucked it in my desk, a reminder of why I fought. Caleb stopped by after school, his grin wide. "Told you we'd win," he said. "You did," I said, ruffling his hair. "You're a pain, but you're my pain." He laughed, and for the first time in years, I felt free. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but with Caleb, Laura, and Ethan by my side, I was ready to face it. The weeks after my reinstatement were a strange mix of triumph and tension. The school welcomed me back, but the town was still divided. Some parents smiled at me in the grocery store. Others crossed the street. Tom's group had quieted, but their signs lingered in my mind, a reminder that acceptance wasn't universal. Caleb was my constant, showing up after school with stories and a fierce loyalty that humbled me. "Some kids are still talking," he said one afternoon, tossing his backpack on my couch. "But it's less now. They're bored. Moving on." I laughed, grateful for his optimism. Good. Let him get bored. Laura kept her promise, too. She invited Ethan and me to church one Sunday, a gesture that felt like a leap. Pastor Mark shook my hand, his grip firm but kind. "We're all learning, Jake," he said. "Keep being you." It wasn't full acceptance, but it was a start. Ethan and I started being more open, not flaunting, but not hiding. We held hands at the diner, went to the movies, lived like any other couple. Each step felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I'd buried. But I knew the cost. A few parents pulled their kids from my classes, citing personal reasons. I let it go. I couldn't change everyone. One evening, Caleb came over with a Surprizia video he'd made with his friends. It was a montage of students and teachers talking about why I was a good teacher, interspersed with clips of me coaching soccer, laughing with kids. I posted it online, he said, grinning. It's got, like, 1,000 views already. I watched, my eyes stinging. There was Laura, saying, "My brother's the best man I know." There was Mrs. Carter, praising my dedication. There was a shy freshman, admitting I'd helped him believe in himself. And there was Caleb, looking into the camera, saying, "He's my uncle, and he's awesome. Deal with it." "Caleb," I said, my voice breaking. I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything," he said, shrugging. "Just keep being you." That night, Ethan and I watched the video again, his arm around me. "That kid's gonna change the world," he said. "He already has," I replied. The school year ended. and I was offered a new contract, no strings. No warnings. I signed it. My hand steady. The summer stretched ahead, full of possibilities. Ethan and I planned a trip. Just the two of us. To a cabin in Michigan. Laura and Caleb were coming over for a barbecue next week. A new tradition we were building. The last day of school. Caleb stopped by my classroom. "Proud of you, Uncle Jake," he said, his voice softer than usual. "Proud of you, too," I said, pulling him into a hug. "You made this happen." He grinned, pulling back. "Nah, you did. I just gave you a push." As he left, I looked around my classroom, the chalkboard, the desks, the notes from students. This was my life. And for the first time, it felt whole. I wasn't hiding anymore. I was Jake, teacher, brother, uncle, partner. And that was enough. The journey wasn't over. There'd be more fights, more whispers, more moments of doubt. But I had my family, Laura's love, Caleb's fire, Ethan's steadiness. Together, we'd face whatever came next. And as I locked my classroom door, I felt something I hadn't in years: peace.